So we really welcome you all for making it to this session, and we will be sharing some insights on various questions, both the questions that we have proposed and also other questions that will come from the floor. And also feel free to share in your experiences regarding some of the issues that we'll be talking about today. And so I'll kick off with the first question. Would you like to have something else before that, Minni?
No, this is good. Just maybe add over here that we do have past recordings of past sessions for those who are new on waterschools.org site. So anybody wanting to know what has happened in the past or hear from other farmers and organizations that have presented their work, it's available on waterschools.org. We'll also, Ash will post that in the chat. So do copy that link and have a look at that. But the rest is fine. Let the session unfold. Walter, do kick off with the first question. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. So the first question that we'd like to look at is how we can make our rainwater harvesting structures, our water holding structures more resilient in the face of intense storms that hit us from time to time. So I think the background to this question is that most of our rainfall events in Africa, they tend to come in the form of intense storms. And that means a lot of water comes within a short period of time. And that can have the potential to overwhelm our rainwater harvesting structures, such as the swells, ponds, that we build from place to place. And the other point is that in Southern Africa, the coming rain season is predicted to be having above normal rains in the last half of the season. And also with climate change, the intensity of our storms is going to be rising. And so when we design the swells, when we design the ponds, we should try to make an effort to ensure that the ponds and the swells are not going to be washed away by intense rainfall. And so I will share a few ideas that I have, and then others can also add in. So one point to note is that we can try to increase the size of our structures. So, for example, the swells, some people make them 1 meter wide and half a meter deep. So in anticipation of the more intense rainfall events, we can make the swells bigger. So we can make them, for example, 1 meter deep. And we can also further widen them beyond 1 meter. And also, the other thing that we can do with the swells is that we should put some pits at the bottom of the furrow, at the bottom of the ditch. For example, every 2 to 3 meters, we can have a ditch or a pit, which is a further half a meter deep. So every 3 meters, we dig a pit. Every 3 meters, we dig a pit. This will further increase the ability of the swell to soak in water because the pits will create an additional space for the filtration of the water inside the swell. Then the other thing that we can also do about the swells is that we should plant grass, which is good at holding the soil on the on the mound of soil that is along the swell. So on the mound of soil, we plant grass like vetiver grass, lemon grass, banana grass, different types of grass that can hold the soil. And that will also improve the resilience of our swells in terms of being able to handle large volumes of water that fall on the ground within a short period of time. Then I'll also look at the ponds, dams that we need to have on our landscape, and to increase their resilience in the face of storms, we need to design the spillways very carefully. So the ponds should be designed to allow excess water to flow down the slope. So when there is a heavy storm and there's a lot of water, we should have excess water being able to move down so that the water does not break the pond, does not damage the dam that helps to keep the water in the pond. So it is my recommendation, therefore, that on both sides of the pond, we should have a spillway, a place where the water can flow down when the pond is full. And we can put 2 of these spillways on either side of the dam wall that blocks the water from moving down the slope. And these spillways should be built with the stones so that the stones will help to protect the dam wall from being washed away. And if we have a bit of cement, we can join the stones with this cement so that the spillways are not eroded as the massive amounts of water move down slope from the ponds or dams. So this will help us to protect our ponds in the face of very intense storms that we anticipate to have as the climate gets more and more out of control. So these are suggestions that I thought I would share with everyone, and then also open up to other suggestions that can help to make our water holding structures withstand the intensity of rainfall that we expect to get over the coming years. Thank you. So for this question, I suggest that if there are other ideas, we can have them, or if there are points for clarification, we can also have them. Over to you, Minni.
Thank you, Walter. So just to summarize, staggered pits in swales to help increase infiltration, and spillways on either sides of our ponds so that runoff can be held rather than breaking the dam walls. Two very good suggestions, and I can see 2 hands up. The floor is open. So Kapete, would you like to come in? Unmute yourself and do come in and respond or add to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Min, and thank you to the previous speaker, that is my boss, Watanyika. Anyway, I think more actually it has already been elaborated, especially on the preparation of contour and the swells. And according to my research, what I've done as well, apart from widening the size of the contour, I discovered that, the whole essence of rainwater harvest is to ensure that water starts to sink within the system. Now, there's also the principle that we follow, what we call 4S, which is the stop, spread, sink, and save. So as we are doing all these interventions, it means that we need to be guided by 4S principle. Now, in my case, what I decided to do is, you find that depending the nature of your land terrain, you find that we can have all those contours and the ditches and the soils in the system. Now, if the land terrain is not good, you find that again in the process along the contour, there might be some erosions. So what I've decided in my case, I decided also to integrate or to plant different types of crops within along the contours to ensure that at a later stage, those crops like cover crops, they will shed off their leaves, then they will decompose within the contour, and it means that it will enhance a better infiltration of water to avoid the situation of just running off water within the contour, of which again the erosion will take place. Then apart from that, regarding the land terrain at my farm, I decided to put two parallel contours to ensure that when water comes from the other end, it will not be able to take, for instance, if water tries to go through the bank, it means that it will be able to accumulate on the second contour. So I would simply say I decided to put a double construction of contours and the swells along the system so that water pressure can be subdued. And apart from that, I discovered that within the system of water harvest, let's try to integrate different crops, whereby we do things like even companion planting, intercropping, and so forth. You find that as the water accumulates there, sometimes it brings also some residues. So that area, we need to utilize it even for food production. I think this is what I've done, and I've been posting that so that at least it becomes a multi-purpose thing. We are doing water harvesting and we are utilizing it for biodegradation of different crops. So at a later stage, it will decompose and add value within the contour, and the area becomes fertile. I think that is my additional. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kapete. Any comments on that? Rosaline, you had your hand up. Would you like to add something?
Okay, I think you said some of the points I wanted to highlight. Are you hearing me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I think we also need to complement with other supporting activities that help in terms of increasing infiltration, like agroforestry, which I think it can also help in terms of increasing infiltration as well as mulching. Then I think there's also need for assistance or capacity building, especially in terms of rainfall projections, because that's one area that is officers and farmers, we are not very sure in terms of how much we are going to receive, because this also guides us in terms of the structures that we should design. The calculations in relation to water harvesting, like how much water, if it rains like 60 millimeters, how much of water does my field collect? Sometimes we don't have that information, and hence we create or design structures that are not adequate to maintain that sort of amount. So I think capacity building in terms of how much rainfall calculations, as well as in terms of designing, because the use of A-frames and other things seems easy, but when you are doing it, it's quite a bit challenging. And like in Zimbabwe, when we talk about the extension system, we realize that the mechanization department has very few representatives on ground. So at the end, the structures are not maybe as per standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosaline. Any comments, Walter? Anybody else?
Yes, I think there have been very valuable contributions on this topic, and I would like to just add on the issue of calculating the amount of water that we anticipate in our water holding structures. So yes, we should really calculate, and the formula is very simple. We just need to know the estimated amount of rainfall in millimeters. We multiply that by the surface area in square meters and multiply it by 1 liter. So that formula will give us the amount of water that we can hold on a given piece of land. So I will repeat that again. The total amount of rainfall expected in millimeters and multiplied by the size of our land in square meters multiplied by 1 liter. So the total amount in liters is what we can expect to harvest using our rainwater harvesting structures. So it's good to know how much water we can possibly harvest so that we design adequately. We build swells and ponds that can hold the amount of water that we expect to receive from the rain. So thank you very much to Roslyn and Lloyd for sharing their insights on this.
Also, the thought comes that, you don't have to do all the steps at the same time. So to build the resilience, as the question says, that with increasing intensity of rainfall, one is we calculate if we have the data of how much rainfall is going to fall. So you build the size of the structure accordingly. You can, that could be the first step. And then the next step could be if more rainfall falls, then you have, as Kapeti said, that there are, you can have two structures parallel side by side, or you, as Walter had said, you can have two outlets, or you can have, then you can, another step could be add grasses according, that are water, that are take in water, absorb water, those kind of grasses on the mounds of your structures. So it doesn't all have to be done at the same time, but slowly you can build in this resilience by taking a series of steps as the rainfall increases and decreases. Thank you everybody for your insights into this question. Any other thoughts and comments on this question, or should we move on to the next one? Maibongwe, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think when it comes to designing, I think the contours and ponds might be a bit tricky, especially for people that stay in rural areas where they mainly have this challenge of rainwater harvesting and stuff. And if you look in areas that are very, very dry, I'm mainly based in Matebeleland. So if you look at that area, it is very hard clay. So ideally, you're supposed to dig all the structures before the rain comes. So when you dig all those ponds and stuff like that, it's usually old people that stay in these areas. I think it becomes very difficult for them to construct this. But I think another alternative, which is good and which can be constructed even in houses, is water bends. They are very, very small. They're semicircular shaped. They're like 5 centimeters to 2.5 centimeters. So these are, I saw them in Kenya. They are mainly used in the Masai Mara regions for the Samburu people there. So I think those are very, very effective as well for rainwater harvesting.
Could you say the name again, please? I missed it.
Water bends. Let me write them down in the chat box.
Chat, please do. And if there's any link you can post over there for people to see or read more about, that would be very welcome. Thank you.
Let me do that. All right.
Thank you. Right, so let's move on to the next question. At this point, I also do want to say that if you have burning questions, do post them in the chat, and our session will last for an hour and a half today. But if we'll cover as many questions as possible, but if not, whatever's left over, we will hold them and have another session, maybe not the immediate one after, but we will have another session to go through all the other questions that arise for people, or we could have them on another forum. So do feel as engaged as you can. Do post in whatever questions that arise in your mind, and do ask, if they're relevant to the current question that is being discussed. This is the forum for us to understand this. Thank you. Walter, over to you.
Thank you, Minni. Just before I move on to the next question, I also wanted to add just a comment on the previous question that it's also important to monitor our rainwater harvesting structures. After each rainfall event, we should check on how the rainwater harvesting structures performed during the previous rainfall event, so that where we can then be able to build the resilience based on the observations that we make. So let us keep monitoring our water holding structures after each rainfall event, so that we can further strengthen the resilience of these structures. Then the next question is if we would like to use some of the water holding structures to keep fish or to store water on the surface so that we can use it for irrigation or other purposes. We would then be interested in reducing seepage from those ponds that are designed to keep fish or to hold water on the surface so that it can be used for irrigation and other purposes. So for this, there are some natural ways of making sure that the ponds can have reduced infiltration so that they can hold water for longer and even all year round, so that we can be able to do some fish farming in the same ponds. So one of the methods that we can use is to make use of high quality clay, the clay that they call potting clay, the one that is used in pottery. So if we can access that clay locally, we can then use it to line the bottom of our ponds, especially during the dry season, when the ponds are empty. We put the clay to line the bottom of the ponds, and then after that, we get some more animals, such as pigs, for example, the free-range pigs, and we feed them inside the ponds so that they spend some time inside the ponds, and their hoofs can then compact the ponds. They will be stepping on the ponds. So pigs, cows, donkeys, these animals, if they spend time inside the ponds, feeding inside the ponds, after we put the clay, they will be able to compact the ponds. And if we repeat this several times, each time the pond is dry, we will get to the stage where our ponds will be able to keep water all year round, and we can be able to stock some fish inside these ponds, and we'll have access to surface water throughout the year, which we can then use to supplement our irrigation if needed. So this is one of the natural ways of preventing loss of water from the ponds. The other way is to also line up our ponds with a mixture of cassava flour, and building sand. So we mix the two, and we put this at the bottom of the ponds, and again we can use the animal impact to get this compacted on the bottom of the ponds, and this cassava flour also it can help to seal the ponds. The other natural material that we can use to seal the ponds is the building lime. Building lime is made from limestone rock, which is powdered, and this can also be used for plastering the bottom and the sides of our ponds, so that the ponds will be able to keep water for fish and for irrigation. So these are some of the natural methods for storage ponds and fish ponds. So I will open this to the floor, and have any reactions, questions, or other experiences in terms of natural sealing of ponds. Over to you, Minni.
Thank you, Walter. That's two very interesting questions. One is to increase infiltration and the other is to stop seepage. So both sides of one question. And many natural ways, and there is also a question in the chat which somewhat links to this question in terms of compaction, carbon footprint, mechanization. So it's a sort of tenuous link, but there is a link there in terms of how the ponds that we construct or the water holding structures how can we increase infiltration and also in some areas reduce seepage. Will mechanization help? Is there a carbon footprint? Do we want compaction in some areas? Do we not want compaction? So anybody, whoever would like to join in or comment, have a suggestion, do please raise your hand and come in. Maybe I could say something about the natural ways that Walter suggested in terms of cassava flour and the dung of animals who feed within the foliage in the ponds. And there are many different ways of doing that across the world. And there was an agroforestry symposium I went to, and there was a whole session held on that. And I'll see if we can bring out some of the strategies that people from different parts of the world discuss. Pigs and their dung is, of course, and donkeys. I think there is some places where they mix it with something and line the ponds with that. Some time ago, one of our colleagues was also building a water pan, and the same question came up in terms of lining the pond and what should we line it with, and should we in some parts people ask, should it be lined with plastic to stop seepage? How can that be maintained? Is that expensive? Is that climate friendly? Will that lead to pollution? And there's no one answer to this. You have to actually look at what is happening in your area. And often we found that one of the ways to really understand something is to look at what your ancestors did in the past. They had the same problems. If there was too much rain, what did they do? If they didn't have enough, how did they stop the water from disappearing? So it's possible that there might be elders in the community who did something differently, and that could be something we could revive. We do say that we work a lot in India as well, and this question of compaction and using cement, sometimes we often get that you're using cement, but cement of course is is a material that can help keep some of the walls, some of the bunds, some of the structures that make your pond a pond very strong. And so, you know, you have to use it wisely and judiciously. That's one thing. And then the other thing is mechanization. Do we always want you know, people working by hand? But then sometimes that can also mean that you know, people put in so much time building a pond or creating the pond that they don't have enough time left for other livelihood activities. So, for example, the ponds in India are often quite big, and mechanization is important. Otherwise, for 9 months, people just will be digging the pond. So it again depends on scale. So even lining the ponds or using cement, or what are the other strategies with which to keep your pond water from evaporating, all these issues, there's no one fixed answer. I feel, I think different regions find their own happy place. They find their own the method that works best for them. Any other thoughts from anybody else from a different part of Africa, if you had any comments on this? If you do, and they strike you after, yes, Kapete, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please, and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Minni. And one thing again, I would like also to contribute to over rainwater harvest is the use of roof rainwater harvest. You find that as many farmers, we neglect quite a good quantity of water comes out from the roof, whereby in most cases we find that behind our buildings, there are the galleries that are being developing, water is being escaping from that point. I think it's also very important to put more emphasis on roof rainwater harvest to ensure that whatever amount of water that we receive from the roof should be either channeled for other beneficial activities, like you putting some bananas close to the building. From there, you put another line where you can put maybe oranges. You make some kind of diversity in terms in agroforest as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
that's where one point where we are missing the point as well. You find that again from the roof side, the other end, some galleries will start now developing because we neglect the amount of water that we receive that we receive from the roof. So I think we need also to put more emphasis on the roof rainwater.
Excellent. Yes, so that's one strategy for holding the water, and you know, that feeds into after the question being asked right now is, once we've held the water, how do we reduce seepage? So thank you for that, Kapete. Walter, any other thoughts, these comments on how this what we uncovered with around the seepage question?
Yes, thank you. And I think the important thing about the to note now is that yes, we have two sides of the coin. We have seepage, which if you would like to have some ponds to keep fish, then you need to handle it. But on the other hand, we need to use the ground as the biggest store of water that we can have, because the ground can hold a lot of water. So, so we should therefore be clear that some structures should be meant to direct water into the ground so that it is kept there, whilst a few structures can also be designed to hold water on the surface so that we can keep fish and we can use the water for other purposes. So we are talking of therefore having two kinds of structures on our farm, so that we can have benefits from both types of structures. So That's why we are talking of controlling seepage on one hand and promoting seepage on the other hand, because we need to have different kinds of structures on our farms. And in the same way, Mr. Michelo has talked about roof rainwater harvesting, and that roof rainwater harvesting can also be done in two ways. We can direct the water from the roof into containers such as tanks, so that the water is held in the tanks and we can use it from there. But also we can direct the water from the roofs into the ground so that it is kept in the soil, and it helps to raise the water table and to boost and recharge our wells and boreholes. So again, we are looking at the same water being stored in two different places. Some places containers where we keep the water on the surface, and the other is to keep the water in the ground and use it through bowls and wells. So I just thought I can conclude with that sort of clarification in terms of promoting seepage and reducing seepage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. The next few questions are actually more or less linked to holding the water. And, we keep talking about we need to hold as much water as possible. But yet, globally, we find it's a challenge. Often communities aren't able to hold as much water as, as one can that falls from the sky. So maybe it's worth spending some time looking at what are those challenges that communities face? Why aren't they holding as much water on the ground as possible? And linked to that is, the question of fisheries that Walter just talked about. If we hold the water and we line the ponds, we could also have surface water as well as fisheries. So if there are livelihood opportunities, what are those livelihood opportunities if we were to hold the water? So the two things are linked. So why aren't we holding enough water? And if we held enough water, what are the livelihood opportunities that could be there available for communities to look into, which they aren't already taking advantage of? I leave this open? Would whoever wants to comment on that or have suggestions or ideas, please put up your hand and come in.
Yes, while other people are coming in, I would like to just also comment on the livelihood opportunities that we can get from water holding structures. So apart from the fish, we have other water plants such as duckweed and the azolla, duckweed and azolla. These are plants that we can plant in the water bodies, in the ponds. And azolla is an amazing plant, which is also a legume that can improve nitrogen availability in the water. But also both plants, azolla and duckweed, they are fodder for animals. So we can grow them in the water, and then from time to time we harvest them and use them to feed our animals such as chickens, ducks, goats, sheep, cows. All kinds of animals can feed on duckweed and azolla. And in addition, both are also eaten by the fish. So the fish, we can add this to the fish ponds, and the fish can also eat the animals. So, and if we have a lot of this fodder, it can be an opportunity to get an income, because we can sell the duckweed and the azolla to livestock farmers, and also to farmers who would like to start their own farming of these fodder crops. Another opportunity is that of planting water-loving trees, water-loving trees, such as fig trees, such as waterberry trees. These trees can be planted alongside our ponds, and in addition to giving us fruits that can be a possible source of income, these water-loving trees, they also improve the water holding capacity of the soil. They trees that actually attract water and keep water in the ground for us. So we can plant water-loving plants or trees besides our ponds, and these include the fig trees and the waterberry trees. So these are opportunities that we can take advantage of when we are developing our water holding structures. Thank you for that question, Minni.
Thank you, Walter. Ferdinand, please go ahead. Unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think these are very important insights. I think it's possible to, another livelihood activity would be to start some fruit tree nurseries and vegetable nurseries. And this can be done throughout the year, and also have some vegetable gardens, some small herb gardens, and farmers and communities and people can have.
Your voice is gone, Ferdinand.
Access, and then we have a lot of. Then our farmers need something to grow during the rain seasons, and that provides a very good livelihood opportunity too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ferdinand. Yes, Philip.
Yeah, so when we were visiting Africa and going with John to many places, including Dulland, who's here in the session, we noticed how rich the African tradition is of holding water in the land that goes back for many thousands of years. And we also noticed that this had been in some sense overwritten by the colonial approach of trying to control the water by taking it away from the land, and then managing giving the water back to the land as irrigation. And as the climate becomes more and more unstable and unpredictable, that attempt to control the climate and control the land and control water seems to be less and less achievable. And this need for communities to identify and connect with their old practices seems more and more necessary. And I just wonder if anybody would like to reflect on how this could happen, that we sort of let go of that attempt to control the environment because it's becoming so unpredictable, and how we can go back to our old indigenous practices as ways of living with a more unpredictable environment and climate.
Thank you, Philip. Anybody would like to come in on that?
Yes, thank you, Philip. If I might come in on that one, I think you are right that there were very important indigenous traditional ways of conserving water, and one was the maintenance of sacred sites around springs. So traditionally, places where water came out of the ground, springs, were treated as sacred sites. So people were not allowed to, for example, do any activities around those sites, such as cutting trees or doing laundry there or such things. So this conservation of important water sources, which were part of the local traditions, I think need to be revived and made use of, because they were very effective at conserving water sources and making sure that communities have perennial sources of water. Because there is a saying that, for example, trees are water. If you would like increased access to water, we should love and have a lot of trees around, because they really help to make sure that water is held in the soil and it becomes available for us throughout the year. So these traditional practices are really helpful in making sure that we conserve water and we have access to clean water all year round. So that's what I wanted to add on that point.
So we have people in this session from different parts of Africa, especially Kenya, Namibia, and northern Kenya, Zimbabwe. Do share your experiences in terms of the discussion we are having. One of the advantages is having varied experience allows people to look at different ways of adding to what they're already doing.
All right.
Yes, Dylan, welcome.
Let me come. Thank you. Let me come in with some of the indigenous knowledge systems that our people used to use so that they then look after and preserve their landscape. The land in Africa is actually referred to as something that is sacred. And it's a natural ecosystem that our forefathers, the people before us, they used to say the land can actually speak to its own people. So land as it is, especially the watershed areas, was considered a place that people could not just go there for tourism, go in there and randomly cut down trees. Sources of water were places that you don't just walk into willy-nilly as and when you want to. So I think this space was actually so respected. Our watershed areas were respected. Our watershed areas were no-go areas for whatever reasons. You cannot go and take a bath where we've got a water source. You cannot go and fetch water straight from the source of a river. So this sacred way of looking at things was a way that also used to help in preserving our land, in preserving our sources of water, and making sure that those sources were protected. We would then call them sacred, and in a way, it means if we have got any water, it would sink down because there was no disturbance by the humans would not go in there, and animals as well were restricted from featuring into places like this. This is the indigenous knowledge system that we're still using in Zimbabwe, Chimanimani in particular, and we're going back there to say, let us protect our wells, let us protect our sources of water so that, yes, we have got more of it, and we can then share it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daland. I mean, it's common sense as well, the traditional way that if animals, you protect the grass, the foliage from being eaten up by the animals, so that the capacity of the soil to absorb the water falling on it is also there. And so there are different grazing areas for the animals. When we were in Chimanimani in last year's visit, we saw a lot of that, and entire mountainsides had regenerated because of the care that Daland and his team were taking in terms of putting in place where animals can graze and where mountainsides can regenerate. Any other thoughts around this? Any other strategies
Yes.
that you'd like to bring in? Yes, KDC. Janet, yes, please.
Yes, I was just following, and I'm happy with all the discussion that has been held. And where I come from is very dry, and the river beds are also very dry. And we are really benefiting from the sand dams harvesting, and also the rock harvesting on the rock catchments, because it's very dry. And I think that's another issue that needs to be emphasized. And also the issue of tree growing. I think it has to be also, it's another way of holding water, especially in where we are. And the sacred places where we are saying that there are these cultural beliefs that we need to, if they are good for us, we need to practice them. Like when there are the sacred trees that cannot be cut, they're actually holding a lot of water and the revegetation. That the practices that are very good and that were used by the older men and women in those years, and they're actually supporting our work. We need to work on it, and that is very good because they're also protecting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Anybody else? The question that often comes to my mind is, a lot of these strategies are common sense and they're not very difficult to do, and yet we don't do them. So what stops us from putting in place these kind of little strategies to regenerate our landscapes, to hold the water, to line the water with the material that is locally available, which is often considered waste material? What is it that stops communities from doing this? Would anyone have any thoughts on this? We found, I mean, in one of the most celebrated cases I know is when we started this work in India, and our colleague went to the communities where it was really, really dry, like Janet is describing, and they had a traditional way of holding water, and yet they weren't doing it. And our colleague asked them, why don't you do it? If you already know what to do, why aren't you doing it? And it's a perennial question we face across the planet with communities. What stops us, or what stops communities? What is a barrier for communities to step into really looking after their landscapes, or bringing in these strategies in which to hold the water and make them lush and green? Yes, Kapete, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Min. That's a very good question. You know, we are coming from the community, different communities. Like in my case, I'm the lead farmer there under Sky Seed Knowledge and Initiative. You know, what happens, you see, as a lead farmer, for us to change the mindset of the community, it becomes an issue. You know, previously we had the land pattern was quite favorable, whereby we could receive normal and above normal in terms of rainfall. Now that there's this issue of climate change, there are all sorts of calamities. You find that even if communities, they are being caught unaware, they are surprised why things are happening like that. So for us to transform them, this is where the issue comes in. We are facing huge tasks to transform the community, for them to understand the prevailing condition and what is happening currently. So actually, in the short term, I would simply say it's just the mindset of the community. They are still surprised what is happening. So I think we should not give up. We take it as a serious issue to ensure that we transform the community, because the community where we are people of different ethnic backgrounds, whereby others, they don't understand, they don't believe what is happening in ABCD. So it's just a mindset, in short.
Thank you. Walter?
Yeah, I would like to build on what Lloyd is saying, that of mindsets. I agree with him. And just to elaborate a bit on mindsets. So the conventional mindset, the common mindset across the continent has been shaped by colonialism, neo-colonialism, and globalization. And it's a mindset that basically says that nature is a mine which we need to extract. So it's an extractive mindset. So in an extractive mindset, you then don't get to conserve the resources that you need to have. So when it comes to water, for example, people just thinking of drilling boreholes, and when they go dry, drilling deeper, going even deeper. So that's an extractive mindset, which does not enable people to make use of indigenous knowledge and local solutions that are there, and living in harmony with our natural resources. So that's really the big elephant in the room, the mindsets. And so we really need to challenge this conventional mindset, and make people realize that there are alternative ways of seeing things, which is what the water literacy that Water School Africa is promoting. So we need to make people be able to read and understand how to be in harmony with the water cycle, and how to help the water cycle to replenish our water sources. So it's just that tweaking that is needed, so that mindsets can be more supportive of of the water cycle. Yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted to add on what the previous speaker was saying. Thank you.
Yes, Swamba. Thank you, Walter. Chwamba.
Thank you all for this valuable discussion. It's inspirational. And to add to what Walter has just said, I will add that in our countries here in West Africa, I'm in Mali, Burkina Faso, where I am, and Senegal and others, I think the modern state took responsibilities from people. And they say everything you need to come to government or to ask for outsiders, instead of first look for indigenous solutions, the solution you can do. You can see that if there's a problem in a village, people, instead of sitting and try to find solution by themselves, they quickly ask for support from outsiders. So let's send messengers to the mayor or to the ministry, or let's go and ask for financial support to implement a project in our village. And they don't think that they can do things without asking for outsiders. And I will say, even at the government level, it's the same. You see people going to Europe, America to ask for something they can do without support. And this mentality of waiting for other people to come and do things for you has spoiled our area community mentality. When I was young, very young, I saw people digging ponds for their animals to drink in very dry areas where they need to keep water longer. It was individual initiatives with support from their friends, from their families. So nowadays, this thing is very rare. The second thing that make it nowadays difficult is, again, the modern way of thinking responsibility, ownership, because the modern laws are beyond or above the traditional laws. If you have your pond, you can set out rules on how to manage it. But if the modern laws are not compatible to those rules, you may find another person coming to do what they want in your properties, and you cannot do anything. For instance, when I was a child, there was community ponds where they go close to the river and dig a very large pond and deep, where at the end of the rainy season, the water is collecting to that pond and it brings fish there. And nobody was allowed to go and fish there. You wait for the chief of the village to decide for the date and ask, they communicate for everybody to come at the river bank, and they give a signal and everybody go and fish. You get what you get, and that's all. You wait, everybody wait for next year to do that. If nowadays you have your pond close to the river this way, people may come and steal it or do what they want there, and you dare not do anything because modern laws are treating people differently. So according to me, these are the two things that, in addition to what Walter has said, everything related now to money instead of social good. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Choma. It's true that today there is a different mentality across the world, and what Walter touched on, it's an extractive mentality, and which leads to all the problems you also highlight, Choma. And everybody, there's also fear that there isn't enough. So you take as much as you can get, you extract as much as you can get. In schools and colleges, we are taught how to extract from the planet, not to regenerate it. But our whole attempt when we gather together to talk about holding water in the landscapes is how we can, instead of extracting from the planet or the earth, how we can show our affection in regenerating what is within our control, what is within our own sphere of. So instead of extraction, how we can show our affection. When we show love and affection to anything, the response you get is so enriching. Same with the planet, the same with the earth. And if it's too big, then it's very hard. But if we bring it down to our own level of influence and do whatever we can, but make sure we do take that action, then the results are very encouraging. There is something in the chat here. I'll just read that out. I think, Janet, you posted something in the chat, which sort of touches on the same kind of challenge. It's my advice that we need to work on the attitude change of the communities as we work on the water structures with the current situation on land ownership. We also need to address land ownership, since the most important sites sometimes are sold off to people who don't live in the village. And that's also a global challenge and a problem. But when we come together as a community, it's possible that we can have an influence and an impact on that. So the challenges, global challenges, are many. You know, we hear this is a forum for African communities from different countries to speak about, and yet when we have similar forums in India or Southern America or Europe, the challenges are more or less the similar. People don't live in the communities, and yet they seem to have a say on the land within those communities. Yet those who live within those communities feel demoralized and don't do anything. So our forum is to discuss what we can do to regenerate our areas where we live. And lots of wonderful suggestions have come. Any other input from anybody? Yes, Ferdinand, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think the mindset dimension that Walter and Twamba have alluded to are important and worth pursuing, especially considering extractive versus conservation, money versus social good, and the changing land ownership in most of our countries. I think we need to pursue, champions. Who are these in the communities? The Michelle, I like the work he's doing. Through this water school, can we have more champions across the continent so that these become spaces for us to learn, to also change, and to also influence governments, but from a local level. I believe it's doable, and we just need more commitment and the passion towards action on the ground with the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ferdinand. The two pillars of Water School Africa are literacy and action. So within that, I'm sure a lot is possible. Chwamba, please.
Yeah, Ferdinand spoke my mind. Thank you. And I think I will add that we need to be, how do in French we say perseverant? I don't know if it's English. I mean, continuous, keep on trying, not abandon as soon as we cross difficulty. So we will continue educating, sharing experience. Educating is not the right word, but sharing experience from community to community. And I think exchange visits for people, farmers, especially farmers, to see what is happening elsewhere, sometimes in more challenging areas than theirs, can be very helpful. Because if the discussion remains between us, support NGOs, literate people, yeah, we may discuss for centuries. If we don't have farms, it will not lead to something that is concrete. So we need to do concrete things in the fields, and also try to let farmers see what is happening elsewhere, such a way that they see it's possible, even if it's difficult, but it's possible. That way, I think, and also try to create mindset change for communities to become more and more responsible for their lives, not be waiting for outsiders like government, ministry, or to come and solve solution for problems for them. We can create our small scale level laws that are not against the national laws, but that will allow us take care of our land, our water bodies, and also our natural resources, to not be just waiting for God or government to come and do things for us. So I think it's a matter of education, visit experience sharing, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Chwamba. I couldn't agree more. It's the space to learn, and after learning to take the action that we can. Yes, Rosalind, please go ahead. Unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Minni. In our case, we have partnered with the government department that is responsible for mechanization. And we are working together to see that at least some structures are constructed and community contribute a certain percentage towards that. So we are now in seeing at least a better speed in terms of the construction of the water harvesting structures. Though one may also say maybe it's not sustainable, but at least for now, we are saying it's helping and many farmers are expressing interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosalind. That's a really crucial point, which we found true elsewhere as well. That when the government joins in, the government, we always say, is not against you by and large. They're there to serve you. And if we can harness, as communities can harness their schemes and work in collaboration with them, and communities take the initiative to do what's needed in their areas, then it's a real formula for really actually taking real action that can change the communities. And the bigger part of that is that is owned by the community. That action, whatever happens, is yours, and you will then feel more inspired to do more when you know that it belongs to you and it works, and that the government is there to help you. So thank you, Rosalind. That's a very, very crucial point. Any other thoughts and questions? We are coming towards the end of our session, but that it's not the end of questions that might arise post the session, but anything for the moment? I do urge you, if you're new to the session, do put your email and we'll let you know what, as the future sessions come. They're usually held on the first Tuesday of every month. Past sessions are available on waterschools.org, which are in the list. There is a movement group, which is an informal place to ask questions around initiatives or strategies or ways to hold water or hold seepage, stop seepage, or what are the grass. So share technical info from those who know, or those who know suggest and say what they know. So there are various spaces that are beginning to come up and which are linked to this, to Water School Africa, which is about water literacy and action on the ground. Okay, so may I hand over to you, Walter, to close our session and give the thanks?
Yeah, thank you, Minni, and thank you, everyone, for the wonderful contributions. I think it has been a very lively debate. But before that, I would like to just give a concluding contribution that I think all of us supporting water literacy work should support the development of community water hubs, which are places or points where there's a shining light on water literacy, where people can learn about water holding work and can see water holding work in practice. So let us all do our best to support demonstrations of this very, very important work. And yeah, I would like to thank everyone, not only for taking time to be part of the meeting, but also for contributing to the collective wisdom that we are building on water literacy across the continent. And we would like to keep growing our family across the continent, and also to grow the knowledge base, the skills base which can together contribute to improved access to clean water to communities, both for their farming, for their livelihoods, and for their domestic water needs. So thank you, everyone. And remember that we continue to meet every first Tuesday of the month, and that in between, we have a vibrant WhatsApp group, water movement group, that we should continue growing and being engaged in, so that we can keep spreading and sharing this wisdom around the theme of water. So yeah, thank you very much for our sharing space today, and let's continue in the same spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. There's one question: how do we join the WhatsApp group? So, Ash, would you like to give a comment on that? How people can join the WhatsApp group if they want to? Ash, are you there? Yes. So if you're new, I guess.
Sorry, yes, I got pulled away.
Yes, go ahead.
So yeah, I've got the links above. Shall I put them again for anybody who joined late? I'll put the link to the WhatsApp group and also our address if you want to email me for anything. And if you leave your address in the comments, I will add you to this Google group as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Ash. So we can add you to the WhatsApp group if you put in your link over here. That's one. Does not the WhatsApp group require a phone number?
Yeah, WhatsApp group requires a phone number, and there's a link at the top of the chat that if you click on that link, you can add yourself. Otherwise, if you give me your phone number, I can add you.
Right.
The quickest way is if you click this link that I'll put in the chat.
Okay. Do add that, Ash, just now before everybody goes off, and then you can have that. But
Yes.
I also want to say the recording of this session will be available very soon. So we'll send it around, and it will appear on the waterschools.org site. So if you missed anything, or there is somebody you want to be in touch with directly, or you want to be in touch with us, then all that info will be available on the website, waterschools.org website very soon. And you can write to us, contact us by WhatsApp, or email us, whichever is the most convenient for you. But you're all welcome. We want, as Walter said, want to increase the movement of water harvesting and all the various strategies and the learning around it across the continent of Africa. So do share this with others who you think might be interested as well. And remember, the Water School Africa online sessions, which are learning spaces, happen on the first Tuesday of every month. And the next session, we're hoping, it's yet to be confirmed, that we'd have a younger group, a school that will share their experiences of water harvesting and how they are looking at it from their generation's perspective. Watch out for that in the invite that will go out sometime middle of the month. In the meantime, thank you, everybody. And it was a rich session. Thank you, everybody, very, very much. And we look forward to seeing you in the next session in the month of October. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Olan. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.